Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Life Administration Podcast. I use different inflection there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And I'm thrown.
The whole thing is messed up. My name is Ryan Taylor. With me, as always, is
Leslie Loftus. Hello, everyone.
Hello. It's good to see you. We haven't seen you in 36 seconds. That's how long we took, I think, between episodes. Oh, my.
Apparently. Oh, by the way, from last week, it was really just 36 seconds. Yes. The stray dog has been found. My son did, in fact, take her over to a friend's house to play with their dogs while he was at work. So she showed up about 10 minutes ago.
That's magnificent.
Yes.
Trav, welcome back into the fold. Good to have you back. No, we didn't panic. Everything was fine.
No, well, because I was 80% sure that's what happened.
Oh, okay.
Right. But but the other part was she's a husky. She can think of ways to get out. She could have found a way out the back gate, in which case she would have gone around the ravine. And I was like, I drove around looking for her once or so. Like I said, 80% sure, not quite. So relieved that the husky is back.
Well,
home.
That's good. Mm-hmm. Also, this is a quick programming note. There may be piano being played in the background. It's going to be
one of Ryan's students, my youngest daughter, is downstairs practicing the piano. And Ryan, the softie, has absolutely no heart to go down there and tell her. He's like, I can't tell a child to stop practicing piano.
It's not in my DNA. Like, I mean, the thought of going down there and saying, hey, I know that you're practicing right now and you're getting warmed up and I'm going to see you in a little while, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
I would much rather spend 2 hours of my time at home trying to edit around it to avoid copyright infringement than to go tell her to stop practicing. I can't do it.
As her mom, who she's down there practicing without any prompting, and so I'm kind of on the same page. So apologies if you hear a little bit of piano practice in the background. Well, this is a fully functional household.
Yeah, you can name that tune in the comments below if you can. Let's see, what else do we have before we get into it? I told my harrowing stories from this morning. Oh, I'll let you guys know that I got partnered on Twitch. Not partnered, affiliated. I wish I got partnered on Twitch.
Oh, so partnered is when you have advertisements then come on?
No, I have advertisements now. So I have like a fully monetized channel. Like I act like money has been made for playing and talking.
Now he talks and plays video games and gets paid to do it. It's like a dream job.
It is a dream job. It, however, will not support at this current point.
Not that kind of money.
But it is sort of cool. I think I've learned a lot in that time. You know, I told a story that I kind of thought that this had passed me by. You know, I'm almost 40 years old. I'm seeing kids stream. They're 18, 19, 20, right? And here I am, like old goofy grandpa up there doing it. But I think, listen,
you're now the voice of wisdom.
I am, and people call me dad. Like that's sort of like the running joke. But I think this applies to really any business that you're ever in. And streaming, no matter how much technology changes, no matter how much the world changes, no matter what business you're in, you're still in the people business.
Yeah, the basis of relationship just doesn't change.
And I use that as my guiding principle going into this, going outside of my comfort zone, meeting people from all around the world, talking to different people, trying to invest in them so they would invest in me. And it has gone exceedingly well. I can remember talking to you like, I got to get to 50 followers, right? And I got literally double that amount in the past 2 weeks because of just relationship building.
Right.
And so
and the whole reason, I mean, you do like to play video games, and so, you know, that's part of it. But the whole reason you've been doing is there's a lack of mentors out there. Yeah. Right. And so this is just a platform, a way that you can do it, a way that you can be out there and hook. So that's why you're doing all this stuff.
And it's funny because the questions that come up most often are, I actually did one the other day. So I always do a question of the day, right? So I want to prompt people when they come into the channel. I want them to talk about themselves. I want to get to know them better. And my question of the day was, what's something that you thought you would never be able to do, but you finally did it and you found out that you were good at it or you excelled at it, right? And the answers that come out of that were just absolutely incredible. And you see these people overcoming things. And then
I'm sure you got everything from like woodworking to math to
honestly,
cooking.
to someone learning how to do gymnastics at an older age, right?
Oh, cool.
But then, that conversation then sort of tailed into, which I thought that it would be people talking about their fears and things like that. And then it became like me just coaching 30 people, right? About how to understand fear, what the brain process is, all that sort of stuff. And so I think it's been really good. It's been really good. It's not turned out the way I thought it was going to. Rarely in life do things.
I was getting ready to say, isn't that that's the constant in life, is that you expected it to go this way and it doesn't go that way.
It's fun. It's still in its infancy. We're still learning a bunch of different things, but we're gonna have a good time doing that. But enough. We need to talk about a very serious and timely topic.
And this one has been requested by audience members.
Yep, I've gotten 3 separate questions on this particular topic, and we might post this out of order just because it is timely. Most of our episodes are evergreen. You can listen to them at any time. And not that this information's bad, but deadlines are coming up for kiddos to apply to college and get their loans squared away.
Right.
So today's episode is about student loans. Okay. And we got a lot to cover. So we're going to talk about the history first. And then...
And this is just, now you're indulging me because this is U.S. student loan history. So... Basically, colleges used to be, you pay for college. If you could pay for college, you paid for college and you went on to higher education. Most people would get a high school diploma, and only certain people would go on into higher education. After World War II, that changed because the federal government came out with loans for, if you were in the military, if you served your country, they would then pay for your college. That was one of the reasons people would up, besides the fact that, they wanted to fight Hitler, all this kind of stuff. So, no, I mean, it was an extra perk. Okay. If you have come in and served your country, then we're going to serve you when you get back by paying for all of your loans.
Love it.
Okay. And the program was a huge, wonderful success. Okay. So that goes on through about the 50s. Oh, goodness gracious. And I'm going to get the dates wrong, I'm sure. If you're doing this, if you're listening to this part for a history project, please verify any dates that I give you. But I believe it's about 1958 that the government decided to expand the student loan. So it was no longer just veterans, it was now anybody. And that was also a wildly successful program. Students liked it. Colleges liked it, because now suddenly there's a whole lot more people that can pay for college, so colleges can expand. It dovetails, we're in the late 50s, and then we hit 1963, and Betty Friedan publishes a little book called The Feminine Mystique. And one of the major points that came out of that book was, women, you need to get your education sorted first. Make your education your priority, and then you can go off and do, whatever it is from after you have your education sorted. So suddenly now women were interested in getting these loans. So between the schools having a huge influx of students that were now financially covered or backed up by the federal government, the program simply exploded. And we've had various forms of federal loans throughout our history from 1958 or so and on. But what ended up happening, schools started offering so many more programs because it's basically free money coming in. They've doubled their amount of students. They've made it so that they're financially, the government has made it so that they're financially guaranteed to be able. So all of a sudden schools start offering new programs, hiring new professors. You fast forward 25 years and get into the 80s and the 90s, and all of a sudden now you've got fancy natatoriums and fancy dorms, and what we now know of as the higher ed university complex that has all sorts of bells and whistles on it and very expensive teachers, it was all driven by the federal guarantees of student loans, because basically somebody else was paying the tab. And when the person who's paying the bill is not the same person that's getting the benefit, prices always escalate.
Right.
So now we're in this situation where college tuition costs have gone way up. You can still get federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. We're going to talk about the specifics there in a second. You can still get them. Matter of fact, most people can't go to school without them anymore. There's very few people that can straight up afford especially private colleges, because some of them run just for tuition are getting up into the 40 and 50 grand. And then you've got to add living expenses and educational books and travel expenses, because it's somewhere in the weird wilds of New England, and you've got to not only fly there, but then drive there.
Hey, I'm from New England. I mean, the weird wilds of New England. Come on.
I'm from Texas.
It's awkward up there.
It's awkward up there, exactly. Suddenly, you can easily be in $100 grand per year for higher education. So there's very few people that can afford it outright. It's almost become like having a mortgage.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is how we get to everybody now. Okay, I need a student loan, because there's very few people that don't need student loans at some point.
Yes.
So, and then I forgot. It's about to all change because, well, all of the assumptions that we've made, the pandemic has all kind of laid them bare, because there's also some athletics payments that come. The entire structure of how higher education institutions have been funding themselves is now very, very shaky, because they need to be doing some stuff remotely. They're not going to be able to do sports the way they've been able to do, which funds a lot of scholarships. So now students are going to need more student loans, because if they can't get the scholarship for the 50% ride, all of this information might be obsolete in 3 or 4 years. Yeah. But it's good for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. It's good for now.
Yeah. You can easily, I've heard more stories about people saying, I go to school X and I'm going to go online, but yet I have to pay just as much as someone that is going. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, I've even seen lawsuits on it.
And they're starting to come out. Starting to come out.
So the new normal, I mean, it hasn't even arrived yet, because we are still in the United States, especially, we're still in the throes of the pandemic.
Right.
And so you got to understand that things are going to change, and you have to be ready to adapt to those kinds of things. With that said,
right now, the student loan program is still as it is.
And typically the government takes a little while to kind of catch up to things,
We'll call them a lagging indicator.
Yeah, a lagging indicator. That's a great point. So, all right, let's get into the process. The application process.
Okay, you want to do process first. Okay, there is a universal form that you fill out if you want to get a. First of all, there are 2 types of loans. You can get federal loans and you can get private loans.
Okay.
Private loans, obviously, you would go to the individual institution that you're seeking the loan from, your parents' bank or whatever, and you would fill out the same way you would fill out a mortgage loan application. You follow their procedure. But for the federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized, there is a single free application for federal student loans, I believe is what it's called. Okay. And you fill out one, and then they give you a report back on, this is what you're eligible for. This is what we'll give you. This is what, these are your interest rates. These are how much of this many dollars will be subsidized. This many dollars will be unsubsidized, all this kind of stuff. So you apply that way on the major loan application. You have to re-up that application every year.
Okay, so it's not like I set the application up and then that's good for 4, 7 years or whatever.
No.
So we're talking
you need to update
year.
it every year. You need
Okay.
to update it every year. Then once it sounds pretty simple to apply. Again, it's going to be a bit of a complicated, go back to the mortgage episode and you can kind of get an idea of the kind of information you're going to need to provide, because they're going to want the student's financial information, but they're also going to want the financial information of your immediate family, because some of it, specifically what's subsidized and what's unsubsidized, is driven by financial need. Okay. So the more financial need you have, the more loans you will probably be eligible for. I'm not quite sure of that. I don't think anybody fully understands the math.
No.
Right. It's a bit like,
Someone's
the Google,
throwing a dart at a dartboard.
no, it's a bit like the Google algorithm.
Yeah,
It's not it's not math that they make widely known.
You're right.
Right. But in general, the more financial need that you have, the more subsidized loans you are eligible for, which might bite you in the butt.
Right.
Right, because then they come back and they say, oh, okay, well, you're eligible for, let's call it $50,000 over the 4-year period or whatever. And then somebody who's more financially able but still not able to pay for college, well, they're eligible for 25 over the 4 years. Okay. So you go off and you, the financially stressed student, go off, oh, well, I've got 50. It's not free money.
No.
It is not free money. You've got $50,000 in loans, not a $50,000 grant, not a $50,000 scholarship. And that's one of the big things that I think gets people hooked, is they think, I got a great deal on my loan, so I can go to the more expensive college out of state rather than staying at my public state university or whatever. It can get dicey quickly, because we'll talk about that in a second.
Let me say something really quickly. And there is okay. Like, how many movies have you watched? How many TV shows have you watched, right? Where it's like a Hollywood romantic thing, right? Like the
trope.
Right. The parent, like, they open the letter, I got in. Right. And they're so excited, but then the movie ends, right? And they don't talk about, okay, well, this is how much money it's going to cost.
Oh, it's kind of like happily ever after endings on fairy tales. And they always end as you're driving off on your honeymoon when it's all great and lovely and romantic, but they've forgotten to tell you all the hard stuff about staying married.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do when you put the silverware in the dishwasher the wrong way?
Right.
What's going to happen
These
then?
are big questions.
These are the questions we need to know. So, so it gets kind of romanticized, right? It becomes a big deal. There is this big anticipation. Like, you can look at a bunch of different studies that say right before the good thing happens is like when the brain is firing off the most, right? And so then it releases all these chemicals and you get super hyped. And so it becomes a much more emotional decision than maybe a logical one. So I would recommend, if you listen, community college isn't that bad for the first
all right,
couple.
put a pin in that, save that for the end of it, because we need to tell them we need to get to why, because it sounds like I just got $50,000 in federal subsidized.
Okay. All right.
Especially when they say the word subsidized, in federal subsidized loans. All right. Here, subsidized and unsubsidized. Exactly. Subsidized loans mean that while you are in school, the government covers your interest payments. That's it.
Just interest.
So your debt still, like, however much of that loan you spend, that still accrues. The only thing that doesn't accrue on a subsidized loan is the interest. That doesn't start accruing until typically 6 months after you graduate or you leave school. The unsubsidized one, so maybe you get $25,000 in subsidized and you get $25,000 in unsubsidized. The unsubsidized one, they give you the money, but as you take the money out, so you take out $10,000 for the first one, and they charge you, let's call it 3% interest. That 3% interest at the end of your college career, it capitalizes. It becomes part of your loan. If your loan is unsubsidized, the interest is added on to your loan amount.
I want to die.
You can see. Now you can see. Okay, I filled out the free loan application. I found out I got $50,000 in loans, 25 subsidized, 25 unsubsidized. And so you think you have $50,000 to go and spend it like it's a ticket.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a voucher.
I got a golden ticket.
I got a golden ticket. Yes, exactly. It feels like a voucher.
Yeah.
It's
Sure
not a
does.
voucher. 6 months after you graduate, you not only have to pay back the $25,000 in principal, you also have to pay back the interest that accrued on the $50,000 or the $25,000 of, did I say that all wrong?
No, you're good.
The $25,000 that accrued interest payments, and the $25,000 that didn't accrue interest payments.
Right.
So at the end, you're already at, let's call it $65,000.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
If you're fortunate enough to get 3%.
Right.
Because honestly, like I'm walking.
I don't know exactly what it's pegged to, but
well,
yeah.
I'll just, I can tell you looking at, because some people might not have co-signers that are in a good situation that, so you have that interest rate goes up a little bit more. When you were throwing the number out there, when I was running the math for my sister-in-law, I'm thinking like 72, 73,
right.
Like somewhere in that neck of the
So
woods.
when you started your federal student loan application and you're filling it out with your parents, and your parents or your grandparents or somebody like that was going to need to co-sign with you, and you're thinking, okay, we're taking out $50,000 in student loans over the course of 4 years. So you're kind of thinking, okay, 50 plus a little bit of interest to pay back at the end. No, you're going to be more like in the 75 range. And that's if you only take it, like, let's just say, you only did the 4 years of college and you managed to do it, budget it so that you didn't have to take out any additional loans or anything.
And 4 years didn't turn into 5 years.
And 4 years didn't turn into 5 years. Like all of those things that kind of happen, it's not outside the relevant. And this happens to people all the time, that they walk out of school with significantly more debt than they planned on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the running joke, right? I mean, I hate this. I don't even want to say that it's a joke, but we talked about it. One of the things that you said stuck with me when we were talking about the mortgage episode is that it's that now mortgages are now like the new student loans. You know what I mean? Like it's like now kids are finishing school. They have tons of debt. The job market doesn't necessarily pay what the expectation is. And now you're in this situation where, well, I got to pay all these student loans off and I can't pay these student loans off and also live on my own or, right. And so so kids are coming back to their house because they're financially strapped.
Right.
Right.
And they're mostly financially strapped for the fact that they have student loans and the increase, because you do, having had a college degree, you typically get a higher salary job than you would without a college degree. It is less and less apparent, however, that the typical post-college job can cover post-college debt.
Right. And that's the reality of it.
Right. That's
now.
the reality of it. So, yeah. Student loans are enticing. You need to be very, very careful with them. And in general, because you can now, I'll go to a private institution and get some private loans. Unless you have a really great relationship with most likely the interest rates for the private institution are going to be higher
Absolutely.
Than the federally subsidized ones, or subsidized or unsubsidized, than the federal rate. And it is unlikely that they will postpone the interest until you graduate.
Right.
So whatever you borrow from a private institution, the interest will start accruing as you draw the money out.
Which is awful.
Right.
For you. I mean, great
because
for the
now,
bank, good for them.
now you could end up paying more on your loan than the school would have ever cost you if you tried to pay out of. I was trying to say something more. That's what I was just saying was obvious. And I'll have to get the thread. It just kind of ran across my head anyway. But it's amazing how quickly the interest payments can go up on you. So the money that you borrowed to pay your freshman year tuition, now for your sophomore, junior, and senior year, the interest has been accruing on that money for 3 years. Ouch.
That's a yikes.
That's a yikes.
That's a yikes.
That's a yikes. All right. Other ways to pay for college
Yes.
that work or that are different. Scholarships and grants. Those are the actual vouchers. Okay, I'm this institution and I like to find engineers from Appalachia. And so you are from Appalachia. You're going to go into this engineering program. So and you've got great grades and you've applied for the scholarship. So here's $10,000. And I'm usually called a scholarship or a grant, depending. There's various details that make it say something different. But basically, that's money that they give to you or that they pay directly to your institution. And so that's $10,000 off your tuition bill.
Yes.
Right? That you don't have to pay back.
30-second commercial break about scholarships and grants. I think a lot of times, again, we can romanticize with like, you have to go get the big ticket one, right? You know, the $10,000. Here's what I found is that there are tons of scholarships and grants that are small amounts that you can just go
$2,500 here, $1,000 there.
And this is about your work ethic and your ability to pursue and communicate and to like go through and actually find these grants and these scholarships. Because I can remember like applying for like, it was like a farm was giving away a scholarship. It was like $1,000. No one had applied for it.
Right.
No one knew about it. And it was like, hey, this thing's over here. You can go you can go get it. So
research, putting together 5 scholarships that come to $15,000 beats the pants off of a $15,000 federal subsidized loan.
Absolutely. And you have to realize what the long-term impact of these loans are going to be. I mean, it is not uncommon to hear people saying, I'm paying student loans off into their mid to late 40s.
Yep.
That people say that. And so get in front of this on the front end, do some work with going to find obscure scholarships and grants because they're out there, and do yourself a favor. It's gonna listen. It's
a pain, and also scholarships and grants sometimes require things like, okay, to maintain this scholarship. Let's say you get a 4-year scholarship for $10,000 a year. To maintain it, you might need to maintain a certain grade point average. You might need to take certain courses. For a grant, you might need to be engaged in some there might be continuing work you need to do to sustain your grant. The obvious one is a sports scholarship. If you get a tennis scholarship to Texas A&M, you need to continue to play tennis in order to get that scholarship, right?
And so this is one of those things where, just like in everything life administration, I can appreciate the stress of getting ready to go to school for the first time, leaving home, the freedom of being an adult, and like letting those things maturate your mind. And that's what you're focusing on. But I'm telling you, 4 years, 7 years, 10 years, however long you're in college, that is going to go by in the blink of an eye. And you're going to be saddled with this stuff for
another 25.
And so just do your due diligence on the front end. This is a front end heavy process.
It is.
And if you can commit yourself, set a goal for yourself, have discipline, set a rhythm around it, whatever. Just like, this is one of the most important things in your life that is not only going to affect you in the front end, but then you're going to be dealing with on the back end. And like, if you were to say, oh man, I'm not going to go for that $500 scholarship. Well, that $500
scholarship just paid for half your books.
Right. And then you did the math and you go, well, if I didn't have that scholarship and I had the interest accrue over time, and then all of a sudden it's like that $500 is thousands of dollars 20 years down the line, right?
Yes.
So go get the dinky ones. Don't be afraid to go put the work in and get a bunch of them. And
if I could go back and tell my younger self to do so, it would be spend some time. I'd rather have 20 scholarships under $2,500 and less than have the student loans that I walked out of school with.
Right. Because it's daunting.
Right.
It's daunting. Okay. That was way longer than a 30-second commercial break, but I had to get that out there because I can remember the farm scholarship and think like $1,000. Like,
why in the world am I going to bother with this application process for $1,000? It's not $1,000.
It's way more than
$3,000.
You just can't see it yet because you're young and naive,
right? And time is nothing to you when you're 21.
No.
It's just, remember, this is even earlier. Time is nothing to you when you're 18.
Right.
Oh gosh. 29 is way, way, way in the future. You'll worry about those things later. By then you'll have a job.
For future Ryan.
Yeah.
He can deal with it.
Yeah. Cause he'll have a job and he's going to be this.
Right. He's going to create the next Amazon.
Right, exactly. All of those fallacies coming. Go get the $500 scholarship. If one falls, if one is in your orbit, and then really do look around. Look around in your specialty, in your subject specialty. Mm-hmm. Look around in any sports specialty. Look around in any community or organizations you own. Like the Rotary Club for your town, or local stuff, charitable organizations. There are lots of places that give scholarships that just have your parents ask around. Who knows? Maybe your mom's company does. Oh yeah. Well, we actually have a literacy scholarship for, people that are going into liberal arts or something like that.
Yep.
So, it's $1,100. So.
Yep. and also I would encourage if at all possible to go to the organ, right? A handshake and a smile goes a long way.
And Ryan is point on right that for a lot of these smaller scholarships, for the big $15,000 scholarship from this, from the Ford dealership down the road, I don't know. I'm just throwing out random thing. Yeah, there are 200 students that know about that and have applied for it. For the dinky $1,100 scholarship that your mom's company, there might be 3 applicants for it.
Yep.
And heck, the decision board might decide, you know what, these 3 applicants are so great and it's only $1,100. We're going to give it to all 3 of them.
Absolutely.
I mean, once you find those smaller scholarships and grants, mm-hmm. they are generally easier to get because there's far less competition.
Yep. And just make yourself visible. Make mm-hmm. yourself visible and just be humble when you go and approach them. Right. Okay.
All right.
Next.
Yep. How payoff works. Okay. So all of this, if we sound all panicky about this stuff, well, now we're getting into it.
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting into the whys of it, which
mm-hmm.
we have both lived through. So typically especially if you're dealing with private loans, each of them might be a little different, but typically you have a grace period of 6 months after graduation before you have to start paying. So all of this time you've been borrowing the money, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. Unless you are a federal subsidized loan, the interest has been accruing that whole time. So you thought you borrowed 50 and now you're like, why is my bill 75? Okay. And why am I paying now on a loan for 75? By the way, so the first month that you pay it, so it's a $75,000 bill and you pay off $1,000 the first month, your interest still accrues on the remaining 74. Okay. So you got interest on the front end. It's not like the interest stops accruing when you start paying. No, the interest stops accruing on those bits that you've paid off.
It's like you go and you pay your first $1,000 and you're like, yes, only 74,000 more to go. And the next bill comes in and he's like, why is it $74,600?
Correct.
I gave 1,000, but it's like this math doesn't work. Yeah.
Correct. It's like filling up a holy bucket.
Yeah. It's awful.
It's awful. And it's worse at the beginning, because as you get further down, you'll be paying less interest. But when we're talking 75 grand, and let's say you got your typical exit job. Maybe you got lucky. You mm-hmm. got a job within 6 months making 50 or 60 grand or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is going to be a long haul. That amount is, so most of the loans will have a set amount of this is what you're supposed to pay because it's a loan that, this will be in your details. Sometimes they will be 8 years of payoff, sometimes 10 years of payoff. Again, think like a mortgage, a term mortgage. So you've got a 10-year mortgage or you've got a 30-year mortgage, 20-year mortgage. Okay. When you got the loan, they probably gave you a term and that term would start after when you start paying. Mm-hmm. Okay. So 6 months post-college, now you've got 10 years to pay off that loan. So the company has done the math and they say, okay, you have, your loan amount for every month for the next 10 years is $1,200. Okay.
and like just hearing you say that just
right. And I didn't do that math on anything in particular. I'm just throwing out a typical one.
Yeah,
a typical one that I've heard
like,
people talk about is around $1,000 plus.
And you need to live and eat and occasionally do stuff, and your $55,000-$60,000 job all of a sudden.
Right. Suddenly that is a big chunk of that. Yeah. Before we get into federal withholding tax, before we get into what you need to pay your rent, that chunk that they're taking out for your student loans is, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
All right. So that's your general 10-year math. There are another couple of options that you can go through. Let's say you are in a job like law, where you come in and you make a smaller starting salary, but within 4 or 5 years, your salary is expected to go up quite a bit. Okay, so you can get a graduated payment scale where you pay smaller amounts for the first 3 years, and then it bumps up for 3 to 5 years, and then it really bumps up and you pay the bulk of it towards the end. Disadvantage to that is obviously you have more interest accruing, so you actually end up paying more long term. But if that's actually the kind of job and salary you have, it makes it so you can still get it paid off in the 10-year period. It's just a graduated scale. Okay. So again, this will be in your loan documents when you sign up for it. You will have, for federal loans, they will assign an advisor to you that should, emphasis on should, know this information.
Y'all got to watch this. You got to watch this episode because Leslie just hit you hard with it. She put the finger up and was like, should.
Yes. One of the perennial complaints about the federal loan program in the past 20 years has been loan advisors that don't really know what they're talking about or just kind of give you, boilerplate explanations. You're going to need to do your research on your own. You're going to need to get in, ask for your loan contract. You're going to need to read it, see what options are available to you, figure out what forms you need to fill out, when the deadlines are. Okay, pain in the butt. It's a complete pain in the butt. It will be better if you do it yourself. But yes, you might have a graduated payment option. You might have an extended payment option where, you know what, I just can't handle this. So you're going to turn a 10-year loan into a 20-year loan. Again, you are going to get killed on the interest. Killed, because now you're going to pay even more money. It's going to be coming out of your monthly expenses for double the time, another decade, but the monthly amounts will be smaller. Many times people make the mistake of, okay, well, I can either pay $800 a month on the 10-year plan, or I can pay $600 a month on the 20-year plan, and they go for the $600 a month. As you might imagine, $600 a month for 20 years is a whole lot more money than $800 for 10 years. Okay. But it seems because you were thinking of monthly budgets. Again, go back to one of our first episodes, the money manager or the money 101, the management. This is one of think long-term when you're budgeting.
If you pick the $600, all I can think about is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You chose poorly.
But sometimes that's the only option people like. They just can't afford this.
I understand. Right. I understand. But also, if you're in the position where it's like, well, I have an extra $200 to go out with my buddies and have some beers and all that. Well, that's not the right decision.
No, it's not.
I'm sorry, and I don't want to, come down on anyone or challenge their life choices or anything like that. But for the long term, that you can. Listen, you can have that $200 to go down to your local watering hole and throw a couple back with some friends, or you finish the loan 10 years later and you get to travel the world and throw, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that's the kind of difference. This is the difference in lives. It's like, you can do so much more. Okay.
Right. And this is what you're not thinking about when you get that first, this is how much you got in a loan right before you start college.
Right.
This is the math that you're not thinking about. This is why we are encouraging you to keep that number as small as possible, get more scholarships and grants, and don't be seduced, especially by the subsidized federal loans sound so awesome. No, they're not.
Yeah.
That interest does start accruing. Okay, there's another option. If you go into public service, okay, this program is wonky, might not be around. But right now, if you go into a public service, so you go into public school teaching, oh goodness gracious, counseling, stuff, any sort of public sector, public service jobs, you can get a reduced rate on a reduced monthly payout on your loan. And after, gosh, is it 20 or 25 years?
We'll say
I'm going to say 20, but I can't remember. Look it up. If you pay monthly on time, the lower rate for 20 years, and you fill out all the proper paperwork each year, then at the end of 25 years, whatever is left on your loan, the government will forgive. Okay. This program was initiated by George W. Bush. To much fanfare, it was going to be great. Encouraging people, because once again, a lot of, say, teaching positions, if you're going to go into teaching, well, we require you have master's degrees. So for jobs that were, 60 to 75 grand a year, they were walking out of school with higher level degrees and 100 grand plus in debt. Like, there was no way they would be able to do it. So no way to pay off that debt. So the government came up with a solution. If you make dedicated payments for a long term, then we're going to forgive the rest. The first couple of years it was out, the program had a 98% failure rate. Because there were so many hoops to jump through. There were so many, oh, you didn't check that box. You didn't fill out this. Oh, you know what? You were late that 1 month. The people administering the program didn't know as much about, and also a failure rate that you didn't necessarily, there were quite a few people that would pay on it for 10 years and think that they were getting, and then all of a sudden find out, oh, actually you had the wrong kind of loan that's not eligible, or you were in the wrong business, or you coded your business job wrong. So yeah, you can still do this, but you need to switch, you need to consolidate into this kind of loan. And oh, by the way, the 20 years starts tolling now after you paid in 10 years. Right. Oh, and by the way, here's the kicker. Every once in a while it would be, and you were underpaying that whole time. So we were still accruing interest on that, and you owe us back.
Yeah.
Nightmare. Apparently 2% of the people that did the initial applications managed to actually achieve loan forgiveness with this program.
Yeah.
It was a mess. Right now, it's one of those things that's been talked about. If maybe they'll get rid of it, maybe they'll expand it. Who knows what's going to happen with it? If you want to go that route, just know you need to be meticulous. But again, look in your own contract yourself. Be your own lawyer in this sense.
Yeah, be your own advocate.
Look at the front. Look at the fine print. Find out exactly what forms you need to fill out, when you need to have them filled out by each year. Make sure that you are in the proper loan. If you're not in the proper loan, then you need to consolidate all your student loans into a proper loan. Administratively, you can see how this would be a complete nightmare. I wouldn't want to bank on this. If you are one of those people that's in, you've just graduated in the past couple of years and you're drowning in debt and you work in public sector, you might want to look into this.
Right.
If you're somebody that's going into public sector work, I wouldn't rely on this.
Right. Okay.
But
so
go ahead and try. Absolutely. But don't put all your eggs in that basket.
yeah. So I have something that I think is overlooked quite a bit. I worked in the corporate world for a very long time, and every major corporation that I worked for had a tuition reimbursement program. And it's one of those things. Now, different companies work different ways. So you have to, so this is more of like, okay, I got to get a job. I'm in school. I'm going to get a little part-time gig or whatever. And you can like make fun of McDonald's if you want to, or like you don't want to flip burgers or whatever, but they have a tuition reimbursement program. You want to go work at, when I was Hollywood.
Yeah, and this is for like while you're in school. So
Yes.
you could work at one of those places and then absolutely.
Yep.
Because there's something else about corporate stuff that I'm going to say at the end. But yes,
And-
so they can get you can cover it like a grant or a scholarship.
Yes. And it's like getting now also a lot of these programs number one, the longer that you work at the company, the more that they give you. And a lot of times your grades. So like they'll give you whatever, $1,000 per course for a C, 2 for a B, 3 for an A, right? And so these are things that you can do while you're working at this company. And then, oh, by the way, like you're building a relationship in this organization. When you graduate, they might say, hey, you know what? We know you've been with this company for 4 years. When you graduate we think you would be great in marketing. We want to make you a marketing associate or marketing director. And all of a sudden you get taken from the front lines and you get dropped into the corporate office and you have a job day one with a company that you know, that you trust, and you're ready to roll with. So
even if you don't, you have tons of experience.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, like you have real world experience that sometimes it's hard to come by.
Yeah,
otherwise.
so you can, and now I can understand the benefit of wanting to work at Joe's t-shirt shop and hanging out there and being like, this is an easy job. I make a couple bucks an hour, but like they ain't gonna have tuition reimbursement.
Right.
But a big corporation, most of them now, especially because there's so much out there with the public image, social media, that sort of stuff. Like they're gonna want to get those kinds of things out there. That should be one of the questions that you should be looking at in your interview. Do you have tuition reimbursements? What does that look like?
Right.
How does the program work? And that's even just saying that the interviewer will want to invest, be like, whoa, okay, this person's
kind of a go-getter.
Yeah, this is not just a job. This is something they're looking for. And again, there are going to be
also
requirements.
they kind of buy your loyalty with that.
Yes.
So I'm going to have this person come in, but now, we're paying for part of their tuition. So they're not going to leave the company for any sort of like tiny little annoyance. They're going to, excuse me, my son has joined us in the background and he is making faces at me. Yes, it is. Thank you. Quiet, please. All right. But the other side of when you're paying for it, also think about corporate stuff.
Yep.
So let's say you walk out with $50,000 in student debt and you're like, shoot, how am I going to pay for them? You're going in for an interview and the company's going to pay you X in salary and it's not going to be enough to cover it or anything. You know what? Someday, especially if it's a bigger corporation, you can ask, look, could I take less in benefits or I could take less in salary if you will cover part of my loans? Once you add the interest into it, that's a winner. I mean, you'll need, I would highly recommend you sit there and you do the math and you figure out exactly, don't let them totally lowball you in return for paying off some of your loans. But think about that when you're negotiating. They might like getting you on so for a commitment, like, okay, if you work here for 2 years, if you work here for 2 years, we'll pay off 10% of your student loans and we're going to get you at slightly less salary. There are tax advantages that they can take care of and that and all of so that it's an advantage to them and they get you for 2 years. They have you locked in because otherwise you have to pay them back what they've paid on your loans. Right. So it's awesome.
It is very awesome.
It's an opportunity way to think outside the box. How else can you pay for student loans?
Yeah. You don't want student loans. We have it backwards. It's like you go to get your student loan and then you go, okay, what's left? Let me go see if I can go, shift and shimmy and get right. Really, it needs to be go shift and shimmy first, right? And then see what's left over, right? And then all of a sudden
it might be a number that you can manage a lot more easily.
Yeah, a lot.
And not to mention the fact a company paying off 10% of your student loans up front before all of the interest accrues, winner for everybody.
Yep. Absolutely. And you have to remember, coming from the corporate environment, the biggest expense that a corporation has is training and development of new employees.
So if they can lock you in for 2 or 3 years, you might be surprised at how much they're willing to, because they're sitting there. Okay, so for every employee that turns over that we only keep for 6 months, that costs us $25,000. This is not a crazy number.
No.
Right.
That's actually low. It's usually typically like mid-30s. So you're right on the money.
Got it. So if you leave within 6 months and they have to train somebody new and go through all of that again, they're at $30,000 of a loss. So you come to them and you're like, I've got $50,000 in student loans, but I'll take a slightly lower pay cut if you'll pay 25 and I'll stay here for 2 or 3 years. They like that math.
They sure do. They sure do.
They like that math. If they like you, they like that math.
Yep. So again, I would just encourage you when you're looking at jobs, that needs to be a significant portion of what you're looking for when you're at this phase in your life. And then my last other thing was community college. You go there for 2 years, right? The piece of paper that you get doesn't have the community college thing. You transfer out and it's a done deal. And you're talking like, if you're in
fractions of the cost.
Yeah. Decimal points matter here. Like, from 10,000 to, I don't even know what it is, 17, 18, 1900. Like, it is so much cheaper. And you can do that for a couple of years, transfer out. All of a sudden, you've literally cut your loan debt right in half.
Right. So spend your freshman and sophomore year at a community college while you're working at, say, at McDonald's and getting, tuition coverage and some work experience. And now you go up and, you can work there too. Yep. And now you take your junior and senior year at the bigger college, wherever you wanted to be that you transferred. When you get your degree, it comes from that fancier. There might be a few courses that don't transfer and you have to take it. So maybe instead of 2 years, it's 2.5 years that you have. So
what?
So you've cut your loan by probably 30 to 40%.
Easily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Those are my two caveats: was tuition and reimbursement in community college.
Okay. And feel free, seriously, to send us questions. We are happy to field other questions about this. But yes, student loans are a minefield of detail, pain in the butt, and they look quite seductive, and they're not nearly as pretty as they seem.
They'll bite you. Okay. Wow. That was impassioned, I would say. I forget what episode it was that I went kind of like banana sandwich on, and I got very passionate about a topic.
Marriage.
Yeah, yes, but there was another one. I can't recall, but you are how I was that episode. Okay. You were just like, and then this, and then this, and no, it's good. It's good. And
you get the form back that says you've won $50,000 in federal loans, and you think you have a $50,000 voucher.
Yeah.
And it doesn't occur to you really, even if you intellectually know, it doesn't really register that you got to pay that back plus interest.
Yes.
And whether or not the interest starts accruing 4 years later or not, you're still not going to be able to pay it off instantly. It's a lot of freaking money.
So there she goes again.
See?
There she goes again. No,
I don't want people to get stuck. I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got very lucky. But I could have easily been one of those people that was still paying it off now.
You don't have to search
50.
far to find people that absolutely get crushed by student loan debt. Okay. Anyway, lifeadministration.com is the website, guys. You can check out all of our episodes there. We have course guides, curated courses, the whole thing. Lots of fun details. Make sure you check us out there and subscribe. That way, when a new episode goes live, you will know before anybody else. Also, you can listen to us on Google Play, Apple Music. You can watch us on YouTube. That's where you watch things.
He messed this up last time, so...
Click subscribe, hit the bell icon for notification, leave comments in there. You can find me most chatty at Ryan Talon, RyanTaillon.
And you can find me on Twitter at Leslie Loftus Text, TX. I also run our Pinterest, like extra links stuff at Life Administration, and then Leslie at lifeadministration.com.
Awesome. So the moral of the story is... go backwards. Start with the money that you can get that you don't have to pay back, and then go get your student loans.
Yep.
Cool. You guys have been awesome. I don't want to say my name again. It feels weird for some reason this time. I've been Ryan Talon.
Now he thinks it feels weird.
No.
I've been Leslie Loftus.
You've been awesome. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.